In just one night, my stepmother transformed from a feminist TV icon into a domestic abuser. She beat me until I was bruised, then laughed to her audience that it was just PMS. I thought I had to swallow the humiliation forever. Then my phone rang. Her therapist was on the line, saying I needed to hear the truth immediately. That single call would drag her career, fame, and power off a cliff. My name is Rowan Blake, and the first thing I notice when I step out of Dr. Aris's office is that the wind has teeth. It is late October in the Midwest, the kind of afternoon where the sky looks like a bruised plum and the air smells of exhaust and decaying leaves. I pull my coat tighter around myself, wincing as the wool presses against my left side. The ache is dull today, a low-grade throb radiating from my lower ribs up to my shoulder blade. But it is there. It is always there. It has been 3 weeks since the incident, and my body refuses to let me forget what happened in my father's kitchen. I walk toward my car, a silver sedan parked 3 blocks away because I could not find a spot closer to the clinic. My phone buzzes in my pocket. I ignore it at first. I just spent 50 minutes talking about boundaries and the physiological response to trauma, and I am not ready to let the world back in. But it buzzes again, a persistent double vibration that demands attention. I stop under the awning of a dry cleaner, shielding my screen from the biting wind. It is an email. The subject line makes my stomach turn over. Invitation. Women Who Lead Gala. Keynote speaker, announcement. I should not open it. I know I should not open it. My thumb hovers over the screen, trembling just slightly. It is not the cold. It is the name I know is waiting inside. I tap the notification. The graphic loads slowly on the weak signal, revealing a glossy, high-definition photo of a woman who looks like she has discovered the secret to eternal youth and inner peace. Her blonde hair is blown out to perfection. Her smile is practiced and warm, and her eyes seem to promise that she can fix your life in 3 easy steps. Valerie Kane, my stepmother. Below her beatific face, the text reads, in bold, elegant serif font, "Join us for an evening of empowerment with Valerie Kane, celebrated life coach and author, keynote address. Women and hormones. Do not blame PMS to justify bad behavior." I almost drop the phone. Laughter bubbles up in my throat, but it tastes like bile. The irony is so thick it feels like it is choking me. Do not blame PMS. Do not use hormones as an excuse. I read the words again, sure that I must be hallucinating. But there they are, black on white, mocking every single second of the last 20 days of my life. I lean back against the brick wall of the dry cleaner. Closing my eyes, the street noise fades, replaced by the memory of Saturday night. It hits me in fragments, disjointed and sharp, like shards of glass. I am back in the kitchen. The smell of expensive vanilla candles is suffocating. I am 29 years old, a grown woman with a career and a mortgage. Yet in that house, I shrink. I had only asked her why she was moving money out of Dad's retirement account without telling him. That was it. A financial question. A reasonable question. Valerie's face had twisted. It was not a gradual change. It was instant. A mask slipping off to reveal something feral underneath. She did not yell. She lunged. I remember the shock of it more than the pain, at least at first. She shoved me backward, her manicured hands hard as iron against my chest. I stumbled, my hip catching the corner of the granite island, but she did not stop. She grabbed my upper arm, her nails digging in through my sweater, and swung me around. When I tried to pull away, she drove her fist into my side. It was a precise, calculated strike to the ribs. I fell. I am 5 feet 7 inches tall. I do yoga. I am healthy. But I crumbled to the floor like a child. The pain stole my breath, turning my vision white at the edges. I curled into a ball on the hardwood, gasping, trying to understand how a conversation about bank transfers had ended with me on the ground. Then came the performance. The back door opened. My father walked in, carrying a bag of takeout from the Italian place down the street. He saw me on the floor. He saw Valerie leaning against the counter, clutching her own chest, her breathing ragged but controlled. Oh, God. Richard, she had said, her voice trembling with a perfect mix of exhaustion and sorrow. I think I am having an episode. The PMS is unbearable this month. I just snapped. I did not mean to push her. I looked up at my father from the floor, clutching my side. She hit me. I wheezed. She punched me. My father looked at me, then at Valerie. He did not help me up. He went to her. He put his arm around her shoulders, soothing her as if she were the one who had been assaulted. It is okay. Val, he said softly, we know it is the hormones. You have been under so much stress. Valerie looked down at me, her eyes dry and hard, while her mouth formed an apology that sounded like an insult. I am so sorry. Rowan, you know how I get. My therapist says I have severe PMDD markers. I just lost control for a second. Why do you always have to provoke me when you know it is my time of the month? Provoke her. I had asked about a bank transfer. I opened my eyes, snapping back to the windy street. The email is still open on my phone. The RSVP button stares at me. Will you attend? I touch my side. The bruise is fading now, turning a sickly shade of greenish yellow. But the tissue underneath is still knotted. I went to urgent care 2 days after it happened. Lying to the doctor that I had fallen down the stairs in my apartment building, they told me nothing was broken, just severely bruised soft tissue. They gave me ibuprofen and told me to rest. They did not give me a prescription for how to handle the fact that my entire family had watched me get beaten and decided it was a medical accident. The day after the attack, Valerie had called a family meeting. She sat at the head of the table, looking pale and fragile, and produced a letter. She waved it around, a piece of paper with a letterhead from a clinic. See, she had told my aunts and uncles. My therapist confirms it. Severe hormonal imbalance. I am the victim of my own biology. Nobody read the letter. They just nodded. They looked at me with pity. Not because I was hurt, but because I was being difficult. Can't you forgive her? Rowan? My aunt asked me. It is just PMS. Women understand these things. Don't be so dramatic. Dramatic. I am an investigator for the State Ethics Board. My entire life is built on facts, on evidence, on the black and white reality of right and wrong. But in my father's house, facts do not matter. Only Valerie's feelings matter. Only her narrative matters. I look at the RSVP button again. If I go, I will have to sit there and watch her accept an award for leading women. I will have to listen to her lecture a room full of people about how we must not blame our hormones for our actions, while she uses that exact excuse to escape accountability for assaulting her stepdaughter. It is gaslighting on an industrial scale. I should delete the email. I should block the sender. I should go home to my quiet apartment, pour a glass of wine, and pretend I do not have a family. That is the safe choice. That is the choice that keeps the peace. My thumb moves to the delete icon. I am done. I am checked out. I cannot fight a woman who can turn her own violence into a victim narrative so flawless that even my father buys it. I press the side button to lock my phone, shoving it back into my pocket. I start walking toward my car again, head down against the wind. I am going to go home. I am going to heat up leftover soup. I am going to forget Valerie Kane exists. My phone vibrates again. Not a text this time, a call. I stop. I pull it out, annoyed. The screen shows a number I do not recognize. It is a local area code, but not one of the usual spam numbers. I slide my thumb across the screen to answer. This is Rowan, I say, my voice clipped. There is a pause on the other end. Then, a woman's voice speaks. It is deep, calm, and professional. But there is an edge to it, a tightness that suggests this is not a casual conversation. Ms. Blake? The woman asks. Ms. Rowan Blake? Yes, I say. Who is this? My name is Dr. Elise Monroe, the voice says. The name sounds familiar, but I cannot place it immediately. I watch a bus rumble past, spewing gray smoke into the air. Okay, how can I help you? Dr. Monroe? I am a clinical psychologist, she says. I am currently treating Valerie Kane. The world seems to stop. The wind, the traffic, the cold, it all drops away. My grip on the phone tightens until my knuckles turn white. I do not think you are supposed to be calling me, I say slowly. Isn't that a violation of HIPAA or something? Valerie has you listed as her emergency contact. Dr. Monroe says. Her voice is steady, but the urgency is undeniable now. However, that is not why I'm calling. I am calling because I am aware of the narrative Valerie has been constructing within your family regarding her behavior toward you. I stand frozen on the sidewalk. My heart begins to hammer against my bruised ribs. A painful, rhythmic thud. What narrative? I ask, though I already know. The narrative that her aggression is a symptom of premenstrual syndrome, Dr. Monroe says, and specifically, the claim that I, as her therapist, have validated this excuse. I swallow hard. She showed them a letter. I whisper, she had a letter from you. I never wrote that letter. Rowan, Dr. Monroe says, the words are crisp, slicing through the air like a scalpel, and I certainly never told her that violence is a symptom of PMS. What she is doing, what she is saying about women's health to excuse abuse, and what she is saying about you, is not just a lie, it is extremely dangerous. A shiver that has nothing to do with the October wind runs down my spine. Why are you telling me this? I ask. Why now? Because she invited me to the gala, too. Doctor, Monroe replies, and I think it is time you and I had a conversation about what is actually in her file. I look down at the sidewalk. The concrete is cracked and stained, just like the story my family has been telling for the last 3 weeks. But for the first time since I picked myself up off the kitchen floor, I do not feel helpless. I feel something else, a spark, a tiny, dangerous ember burning in the pit of my stomach. I am listening. I say. I stand on the corner of 4th and Main, the phone pressed against my ear, listening to Dr. Monroe's breathing on the other end of the line. Her revelation hangs in the air between us, heavy and suffocating. But to understand why the ground beneath my feet feels like it is shifting, you have to understand the architecture of the lie. You have to understand that Valerie Kane did not just walk into my life. She curated her entrance like a museum exhibit. My childhood was quiet. It was just my father and me for 19 years. My mother died when I was barely walking, leaving behind a silence in the house that Dad filled with books and I filled with study. We were a team, him and me. We were practical people. Then, just as I was preparing to leave for university, he met Valerie. She was not just a woman, she was a movement. At the time, she was launching her second book, The CEO of Your Soul. She described herself as a life coach, a title that seemed to mean she was an expert in everything without needing a degree in anything. She swept my father off his feet with a tornado of positive affirmations and neatly packaged wisdom. By the time I turned 20, she had moved in, redecorated our living room in shades of beige and cream, and established herself as the matriarch of a family she had only just joined. Publicly, Valerie was the gold standard of modern womanhood. I would scroll through social media and see photos of us that I did not remember posing for. There was one from Thanksgiving 3 years ago, where she had her arm draped over my shoulder, laughing at something I supposedly said. The caption read, "So grateful for my bonus daughter. Blended families are hard work, but love conquers all." The comments were a river of praise. You are a saint. Val. Rowan is so lucky to have a role model like you. Privately, the narrative was different. Valerie did not like my job. She found my work as a legal investigator for the State Ethics Board to be low vibrational. She called me a mood dampener. If I came home tired after a 10-hour shift reviewing case files, she would sigh loudly in the kitchen, banging pots and pans. You carry so much negative energy. Rowan, she would say, pouring herself a glass of organic red wine. It is heavy. It suffocates the joy in this house. You really should try my workshop on releasing toxic attachments. It might help with that permanent frown. I was the gray cloud to her sunshine. I was the boring, bureaucratic obstacle to her spontaneous, enlightened existence. But I took it. I took it because my father looked happier than he had been in 2 decades. I told myself that her passive-aggressive comments about my weight or my lack of makeup were just the price of admission for his happiness. Then came that Saturday night. It started with a bank statement. I had gone over to their house for dinner, a weekly ritual I endured to keep the peace. Dad was in the garage fixing the lawnmower. Valerie was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables with a manic sort of energy. I had seen the statement on the hall table, opened by mistake. It showed a withdrawal of $5,000 from Dad's emergency medical fund. I walked into the kitchen, holding the paper. "Valerie," I asked, keeping my voice level, "why did you move $5,000 out of the joint medical account?" Dad said he wanted that kept liquid for his heart medication. She stopped chopping. The knife hit the cutting board with a sharp thud. She turned to me, and her eyes were not the warm, inviting eyes of the woman on the book covers. They were cold, dead things. "You are snooping now?" she asked. Her voice was low, dangerous. "It was on the table," I said. "Valerie, that is his safety net. You cannot just use it for— What is this for? Another retreat?" She crossed the distance between us in 2 strides. I did not flinch because I did not expect violence. I was a 29-year-old woman standing in a suburban kitchen. We were not in a bar fight. We were civilized people. Or so I thought. She shoved me. It was not a playful push. She planted both hands on my shoulders and drove me backward with shocking force. My lower back slammed into the granite edge of the island counter. The pain was immediate, a sharp, electric jolt that shot up my spine. "You ungrateful little brat," she hissed, her face inches from mine. "I manage this family. I manage the money. I manage his emotions because you are too cold to give him any warmth." I tried to step sideways, to get away from her, but she grabbed my left arm. Her grip was like a vice. She yanked me toward her, throwing me off balance, and then she swung. It was a closed fist, a punch. She drove her knuckles hard into my lower ribs, right where the bone is most vulnerable. The sound of air leaving my lungs was loud in the quiet kitchen. I collapsed. I did not fall gracefully. I hit the floor hard, my knees banging against the hardwood, clutching my side, unable to draw breath. My vision swam. The pain was nauseating, a deep, sickening throb that made me want to vomit. I looked up at her, gasping, trying to form words. She was standing over me, breathing heavily, her fists still clenched. For a second, I saw pure rage in her face. She looked like she wanted to kick me. Then, there was a knock at the side door. It was Mrs. Gable, the neighbor. She must have heard the slam of my body against the island. The transformation was instantaneous. It was like watching a computer reboot. Valerie's shoulders slumped. Her face crumpled. She dropped to her knees, not to help me, but to position herself on the floor near me. She started hyperventilating. "Oh, God," she wailed, loud enough for the door to hear. "I cannot breathe. I feel so dizzy." Dad came running in from the garage at the same moment the back door opened. He saw me on the floor, holding my ribs. He saw Valerie on the floor, holding her head. "What happened?" Dad yelled, dropping his wrench. "I do not know what came over me," Valerie sobbed, burying her face in her hands. "Rowan was shouting at me about money, and the PMS is so bad this month. Richard, I felt like I was possessed. I just wanted her to stop yelling." I was not yelling. I had never raised my voice, but as I lay there, curled in a fetal position, trying to keep from passing out, I realized that the truth did not matter. The performance had already begun. The next day was the family meeting. I almost did not go. My ribs were taped up, and every breath felt like a knife twist. But Dad had begged me. "She feels terrible." "Rowan," he had said on the phone, "please, just hear her out. We need to heal this." So I went. I sat on the stiff armchair in the living room, while Valerie sat on the plush sofa, flanked by my father and my Aunt Sarah. Valerie looked pale. She wore no makeup, a calculated choice to look vulnerable. She held a piece of paper in her hands. "I went to see my therapist this morning," Valerie said softly. Her voice trembled. She wrote this for me. For us. She placed the paper on the coffee table. It was on official letterhead from the Monroe Clinic. I could see the logo from where I sat. Dr. Monroe confirmed that I am suffering from severe hormonal dysregulation, Valerie explained, wiping a tear from her cheek. It induces temporary psychosis and aggression. It is not me. It is the chemistry. I am essentially a victim of my own body. My Uncle Mike nodded solemnly. My wife gets moody too. Val, he said, we understand. It is nature. It is not just moodiness. Mike, Valerie corrected him gently. It is a medical crisis. The doctor says I need compassion, not judgment. She says that what happened with Rowan was a classic symptom of PMDD triggered by stress. I stared at the letter. I reached out to take it, but Valerie's hand hovered over it, protective. I just want you to read the part about forgiveness, she said, pointing to a paragraph. I managed to glance at the text. It was dense medical jargon. I saw the words hormonal fluctuation and stress response, but before I could read the sentence about violence, Aunt Sarah patted my knee. Rowan, honey, she said, look at her. She is devastated. You are nearly 30 years old. You are strong. You can take a little push. Do not hold a grudge over biology. That is not what women do for each other. A little push. I had a bruised intercostal muscle and a hematoma the size of a dinner plate on my flank. But in that room, under the warm glow of Valerie's perfect lighting, I was the villain. I was the one refusing to accept the science. I was the one punishing a sick woman. My father looked at me with pleading eyes. Let it go. Ro, he whispered. For the family. I looked at Valerie. She offered me a small, watery smile, the kind that says I won. And that was the moment I stopped speaking. I realized that arguing was useless. She had weaponized her gender, weaponized a medical condition, and weaponized a doctor's authority to turn assault into an accident. But now, standing on this windy street corner with the phone against my ear, listening to the real Dr. Monroe tell me that she never wrote that letter, the silence that has filled my throat for 3 weeks begins to crack. Dr. Monroe, I say into the phone, and my voice is steady for the first time since I hit the kitchen floor. If you did not write that letter, then what exactly is in that file? I need to know, because if Valerie lied about the letter, she lied about everything, and if she lied about everything, then I am not just a victim of a bad stepmother, I am the key witness to a fraud that is about to take the stage in front of 500 people. To my family, I am a boring clerical worker. That is the box they have constructed for me, and it is a box I have willingly inhabited for years because it was safer than the alternative. When Valerie introduces me to her high society friends at brunch, she usually waves a dismissive hand and says, Rowan works for the state, filing papers, keeping the bureaucracy humming, very safe, very predictable. She says it with a pitying smile, the subtext being that I lack the fire, the charisma, and the entrepreneurial spirit that courses through her veins. To my father, I am just a government employee with a pension plan and a quiet life. They think my days are filled with spreadsheets and coffee breaks. They are wrong. They have no idea that the boring office I walk into every morning is the headquarters of the Cedar State Board of Psychological Ethics and Behavioral Coaching. They have no idea that I am not a secretary. I am a senior investigator. My job is not to file papers. My job is to hunt down the wolves who hide in the clothing of healers. I investigate licensed therapists, counselors, and the growing, unregulated army of life coaches who cross the line between guidance and abuse. I spend my days listening to audio recordings of sessions where boundaries are violated. I read transcripts where vulnerable people are manipulated into signing over their life savings. I build cases against professionals who use their authority to prey on the weak. I am the person who strips them of their licenses. I am the person who ends their careers. And 3 months before Valerie shoved me into that granite counter, a file landed on my desk that made my blood run cold. It was a Monday morning. The air conditioning in the office was humming too loudly, as it always does in government buildings. The intake coordinator had dropped a stack of new complaints on my desk. I was sipping lukewarm coffee, flipping through the tabs, assigning priority levels. Most were standard issues: billing disputes, confidentiality breaches, failure to maintain records. Then I saw the name on the tab of the third file. Subject: Valerie Kane. Credential: Certified Life Strategist, Behavioral Consultant. I remember freezing. The coffee cup hovered halfway to my mouth. For a moment, I thought it was a mistake, or perhaps a different Valerie Kane. But then I opened the cover. There was her face, smiling up at me from a photocopy of her website's About Me page. The same smile she gives my father when she asks for his credit card. The same smile that graces the covers of her books. I knew, instantly, that I was in a compromised position. The ethical protocols of the board are strict. As an investigator, I cannot touch a case involving a family member. It is an immediate conflict of interest. The rulebook says I must close the file, walk to my supervisor's office, and formally recuse myself. I am supposed to hand it over to a colleague without reading a single page of the evidence to ensure the investigation remains unbiased. I knew the rules, but I did not stand up, not immediately. Instead, I sat there, my heart hammering against my ribs, and I turned the page. I told myself I just needed to verify the relationship, to be sure, but that was a lie. I wanted to know. I needed to know who had complained about the woman who slept down the hall from my father. The file was thick. It was not just one complaint. It was a cluster. I read the first summary statement. It was from a woman named Angela, a 34-year-old marketing executive. Ms. Kane told me that my husband's verbal abuse was actually a reaction to my own hormonal fluctuations, Angela had written. She said that men are sensitive to female pheromones during ovulation, and that if he screamed at me, it was because my energy was too aggressive during that time of the month. She told me to track my cycle and stay quiet during his outbursts. When I told her he threw a vase at me, she asked if I had provoked him with my PMS. I felt a wave of nausea roll through me. I turned to the next complaint, a woman named Jessica. I went to Valerie for help with workplace confidence. Instead, she spent our sessions analyzing my cycle. When I told her I was angry that my boss stole my project, she dismissed it. She said, "You are not angry, Jessica. You are premenstrual. Your perception of reality is distorted right now." She convinced me not to report my boss to HR. She said I would look hysterical. I read another and another. The pattern was terrifyingly consistent. It was a masterclass in gaslighting, packaged in the pseudo-scientific language of women's empowerment. Valerie was not helping these women. She was systematically dismantling their trust in their own reality. She was teaching them that their anger was a biological defect. She was teaching them that abuse, whether from a partner, a boss, or from Valerie herself, was always, somehow, a misunderstanding caused by hormones. I sat in my gray cubicle, surrounded by the hum of phones and the clatter of keyboards, and I felt like the walls were closing in. I heard Valerie's voice in my head, echoing the things she had said to me over the years. "You are so sensitive. Rowan, is it your week? You are overreacting. It must be the chemistry." I realized then that she was not just a difficult stepmother. She was a predator. She had built a lucrative empire on the premise of stripping women of their right to be angry, blaming their valid emotions on their biology, and charging them $300 an hour for the privilege. I forced myself to close the file. My hands were shaking. I stood up, walked to my supervisor's office, a stern woman named Director Lopez, and placed the file on her desk. "I have to recuse myself from case number 492. I told her. My voice was tight. Director Lopez looked up over her glasses. "Reason?" "The subject is my stepmother," I said. She nodded, professional and detached. "Understood. Good catch. Blake, I will reassign it to Hopkins. You are to have no contact with the investigation. No discussion of it with the subject. Clear?" "Clear," I said. I walked back to my desk and sat down, staring at the blank screen of my computer. I had followed the rules. I had handed over the weapon. I assumed, naively, that the system would work. I assumed that Hopkins, a diligent but unimaginative investigator, would look into it, find the violations, and sanction her. But investigations take time. They take months of interviews, subpoenas, and hearings, and while the gears of the bureaucracy ground slowly in the background, life at home continued. I watched Valerie charm my father. I watched her host dinner parties. I watched her accept accolades, and I stayed silent. I had to. If I tipped her off, I could ruin the investigation. I could be fired for leaking confidential information, so I bit my tongue. I played the role of the boring stepdaughter. I let her think I was nothing more than a paper pusher who did not understand her brilliant, spiritual world. Then came the Saturday in the kitchen. When she punched me, when she drove her fist into my ribs, it was shocking, yes, but in the aftermath, as I lay on the floor listening to her switch instantly into the victim of PMS mode, a horrifying clarity washed over me. She was using the script. The exact same script I had read in the complaints from Angela and Jessica. I lost control because of my hormones. You provoked me because of your bad energy. My therapist agrees with me. She was doing to me exactly what she had done to those clients. The only difference was that this time, the violence was physical, not just psychological, and she was doing it with a confidence that suggested she had done it 1,000 times before and gotten away with it every single time. When she produced that letter the next day, the letter from Dr. Monroe, I felt a spike of despair. If she had a licensed psychologist backing her up, if she had managed to manipulate a clinical professional into validating this hormone defense, then the complaints in the file might not stick. She could claim medical necessity, she could claim disability, she could slip through the cracks of the ethics board, just like she had slipped through the cracks of my father's judgment. That was what I believed, until 5 minutes ago. Standing here on the street, the wind biting at my cheeks, I realize the landscape has changed completely. Dr. Elise Monroe is on the phone, and she is telling me she never wrote that letter. This means Valerie forged a medical document. My investigator brain wakes up. It shakes off the trauma, shakes off the daughter guilt, and snaps into high gear. Forgery of a medical document is not just a lie. It is a crime. Using a falsified clinical endorsement to excuse domestic battery? That is fraud. That is evidence of consciousness of guilt. And if she showed that letter to my family to silence a witness to assault, that is witness tampering. The file I handed over to Hopkins was strong, but it relied on the subjective testimony of clients. It was, he said, she said. But this is concrete. This is a smoking gun. And the most beautiful, terrible irony of it all is that Valerie has no idea who I really am. She thinks she invited a dull, passive office worker to her gala. She thinks she invited a punching bag who will sit in the back row and keep her mouth shut. She does not know she has invited a senior investigator from the ethics board who now knows exactly where the bodies are buried. I grip the phone tighter. The fear I felt earlier is evaporating, replaced by a cold, sharp determination. I am not just Rowan Blake, the stepdaughter who gets pushed around. I am Investigator Blake, and I have been handed the missing piece of the puzzle. Dr. Monroe, I say, and my voice sounds different to my own ears. Stronger, harder. You said you want to talk about what is in her file. I think we should do more than talk. I think we should meet. I have an hour before my next patient. Dr. Monroe replies, Can you come to the clinic? I will be there in 20 minutes, I say. I hang up the phone. I do not look at the email invitation again. I do not need to. I know I'm going to that gala. I am going to RSVP. Yes, but I'm not going as a guest. I am going as the consequences she never saw coming. I sit in the driver's seat of my car, the engine idling, the heater blasting hot air that does nothing to thaw the chill in my bones. I have not put the car in gear yet. I cannot. The phone is still pressed to my ear. And Dr. Elise Monroe's voice is the only thing anchoring me to reality. You are listed as Valerie's emergency contact. Dr. Monroe says. Her tone is clinical but laced with a distinct urgency that cuts through the static. She signed the release forms 3 months ago. She wanted you to be reachable in case of a medical crisis, but what she described to your family, this incident, this letter, It constitutes a crisis of a different nature, a moral one. My hand grips the steering wheel. The leather is freezing under my palm. I stare at the brick wall of the dry cleaner in front of me, but I am seeing the piece of paper Valerie placed on the coffee table. The letterhead, the signature. She showed us a letter, I say, my voice sounding thin and brittle. It had your logo. It had your signature. It said that her behavior was a direct result of PMDD, and that violence was an unfortunate but expected symptom. My father read it. My aunt read it. They looked at me like I was a monster for not accepting it. I hear a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. I did not write that letter. Rowan, Elise says firmly, I need you to understand this. I wrote a general summary of symptoms for her file. Mood swings, irritability, fatigue, standard markers for premenstrual dysmorphic disorder. I suspect she took that document, scanned it, and inserted her own paragraphs to fit her narrative. She likely kept the header and the footer and fabricated the body text. Forgery. The word rings in my head like a gunshot. My stepmother did not just lie. She committed a felony to cover up a battery. But why are you calling me? I ask. If she is your client, isn't this all confidential? Why risk your license to tell me this? Because confidentiality has limits, Elise replies. Her voice drops an octave, becoming graver. We are mandated reporters when there is an imminent threat of harm to self or others. But this goes beyond that. Last week, during our session, Valerie was boastful. Boastful? I repeat. She told me she had handled the situation with you. Elise says she was proud of it. She said she had successfully reframed the narrative. She told me, and I'm quoting her directly here, that she had managed to align the family perspective by leveraging my authority. She laughed about it. Rowan, she said, I just told them Dr. Monroe said it was the hormones, and they folded. It is amazing what people will believe if you put a medical stamp on it. I feel the blood drain from my face. I remember Valerie's tearful apology in the living room, the way she had trembled, the way she had let my father hold her while she cried about being a victim of her own biology. It was all a performance, and while I was sitting there with my ribs taped up, swallowing my pain, she was mentally high-fiving herself for pulling off the con of the century. She admitted to gaslighting us? I ask. To your face? She views it as conflict management, Elise says, and I can hear the disgust she is trying to suppress. She does not see you as a person she hurt. She sees you as a plot hole she had to fix, and that is why I am calling. Because a person who can methodically construct a lie that elaborate to cover up physical violence is not someone who stops. She is escalating. I lean my head back against the headrest, closing my eyes. The pain in my side throbs in time with my heartbeat. For weeks, I have wondered if maybe I was crazy. Maybe I had provoked her. Maybe I was too hard on her. But this phone call is the sunlight burning away the fog. Are you safe right now? Elise asks. Do you feel physically safe going back to that house? I do not live there, I say. I have my own apartment. Good, Elise says, because I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer as a woman who has been assaulted, not as a daughter trying to keep the peace. Do you want to file a formal complaint? I freeze. Not with the police, Elise continues. I know families complicate legal matters, but there are ethical boards. There are oversight committees. I have already sent a report to the State Ethics Board regarding her misuse of my professional credentials and her distortion of therapy to justify abuse. I could not stay silent after what she admitted in my office. I breached privilege because her manipulation of my words poses a danger to the public trust, but my report is just from a doctor. A report from a victim carries a different kind of weight. My heart hammers against my ribs. She has no idea. She has no idea that the report she sent is likely sitting in the intake queue of the very building I work in. She has no idea she is talking to a senior investigator who specializes in exactly this kind of violation. I need to think, I say, my voice shaking. There is one more thing, Elise says, and this is the part that made me pick up the phone today. What? I ask. The gala, Elise says. The Women Who Lead event. I know about it. I say, I just got the invitation. Valerie has been workshopping her speech during our sessions. Elise says she calls it her magnum opus. She plans to use a personal anecdote to illustrate her point about overcoming hormonal stigma. I feel a cold pit open in my stomach. No. She is going to tell the story of the assault. Rowan, Elise says. But she is going to tell her version. She plans to stand on that stage, in front of the entire state chapter, and describe how she heroically navigated a violent domestic misunderstanding caused by her PMDD. She is going to paint you as the aggressor. She is going to describe you, without using your name, perhaps, but with enough detail that anyone who knows the family will know it is you, as the difficult, unsupportive antagonist who pushed her to the brink. I cannot breathe. It is not enough that she hit me. It is not enough that she turned my father against me. Now she wants to package my trauma and sell it as inspirational content. She wants to monetize the moment she bruised my ribs. She is going to ruin me, I whisper. If she tells that story publicly, she is going to cement her status as a martyr. Elise finishes, and she is going to use my name to do it. She plans to cite her therapist on stage as the one who validated her actions. I stare out the windshield. The world looks gray and flat. I will be there, Elise says. I bought a ticket the moment I realized what she was planning. I intend to be in that audience. I cannot stop her from speaking. I cannot tackle her before she reaches the microphone. But I will not let my name be used to sanction abuse. You are going? I ask. Yes, Elise says. And I am telling you this because you have a choice. You can stay home. Nobody would blame you. It is safer. But if you have the strength, if you can bear to be in that room, having the living, breathing truth present in the audience changes the energy. It changes the stakes. I think about the bruised ribs. I think about the way my father looked at me, with that disappointment that hurt worse than the punch. I think about the file on my desk at work, the complaints from Angela and Jessica and all the other women Valerie has silenced. If I go, I say, I cannot promise I will stay quiet. I am not asking you to stay quiet, Elise says. I am asking you to witness. And if the moment comes, if she crosses the line she has been dancing around, we will handle it. I am not protecting her anymore. Rowan, my duty of care ends when the client uses therapy as a weapon. I look at the clock on the dashboard. It is 5:30 in the afternoon. The gala is in 4 days. I will be there, I say. Good, Elise says. I will look for you. And Rowan? Yes? You are not crazy, she says, and it was not your fault. The line goes dead. I lower the phone from my ear. My hand is trembling, but not from fear. Not anymore. I feel a strange, cold clarity settling over me, like a layer of ice forming over a deep lake. I start the car. I do not drive toward my apartment. I drive toward the office. It is after hours, but I have a key. I need to go to my desk. I need to open the secure server. I need to see the report Elise Monroe filed, and then I need to prepare. Valerie Kane thinks she is going to a coronation. She thinks she's going to stand on a stage and receive applause for being a brave survivor of her own biology. She thinks her stepdaughter is going to sit at home, crying into a pillow, ashamed and silenced. She is wrong. She is going to find out that the boring office worker she married into the family knows the rulebook better than she does. She is going to find out that when you strike a match in a room full of gasoline, you do not get to decide who burns. I pull out of the parking spot, merging into the traffic. The pain in my side is still there, sharp and insistent, but now it feels different. It feels like fuel. I drive through the darkening streets, and for the first time in 3 weeks, I am not thinking about how to hide the bruise. I am thinking about how to expose the fist that made it. The Cedar State Code of Ethics for Behavioral Professionals is not light reading. It is 300 pages of dense legal text designed to draw a line between help and harm. On the night before the gala, I do not sleep. I sit at my kitchen table, the rulebook open in front of me, highlighting sections in yellow until my eyes burn. I am walking a razor's edge. On one side, I am a victim of domestic violence. On the other, I am a state investigator. If I blur the lines, if I use my badge to settle a personal vendetta, I could lose my license. I could destroy the very career that gives me the independence Valerie hates so much. I need to be surgical. I need to know exactly where my rights as a citizen begin and where my duties as an officer end. Section 4. Paragraph 2. Exploitation of professional authority. Section 7. Paragraph 1. Misrepresentation of clinical data. I memorize them. I recite them like a prayer. At 8 in the morning, I am waiting outside Director Mariah Lopez's office. I have not told anyone else at the board about the call from Dr. Monroe. This conversation has to be off the record until it becomes official record. When Lopez calls me in, she looks at the dark circles under my eyes and the stiffness in the way I sit. I can't lean back. My ribs won't let me. Talk, she says. She does not offer coffee. Lopez is not the mothering type. She is a shark in a blazer, which is exactly why I respect her. I need to update my recusal statement regarding the Valerie Kane file. I say, new information has surfaced. Personal information. I tell her everything. I tell her about the punch in the kitchen. I tell her about the PMS defense. I tell her about the forged letter on Dr. Monroe's letterhead. I do not cry. I keep my voice flat. Factual. Listing the events as if I am reading a police report about a stranger. Lopez listens in silence, tapping a pen against her mahogany desk. When I finish, she stops tapping. She forged a clinical document to gaslight a witness. Lopez says, "It is not a question." "Yes," I reply, and she intends to present this narrative publicly tomorrow night at the Women Who Lead Gala. Dr. Monroe contacted me because she believes her professional identity is being hijacked to validate abuse. Lopez leans forward. Her eyes are hard. "You know I cannot put you back on the case. Rowan, you are too close. If you touch this investigation now, any defense lawyer worth his salt will claim bias and get the whole thing thrown out." I know. I say, I am not asking to investigate. I am asking for permission to attend the gala without it being considered a conflict of interest. I need to be there, not as Investigator Blake, but as Rowan. Lopez looks at me for a long moment, then she opens a drawer and pulls out a file, the one I had handed over months ago. "We have elevated the Kane case," she says. "It is no longer a standard review. It is a priority investigation. Since you recused yourself, 3 more complaints have come in, all describing the same pattern. She finds vulnerable women, convinces them their trauma is hormonal, and then isolates them from their support systems. She is dangerous. Rowan." She closes the file. "I am sending Hopkins," she says. Hopkins is one of our senior field agents, a man who looks like a bored accountant, but notices everything. He is going in under the guise of a corporate sponsor. He will be recording everything she says on stage. If she makes a false medical claim or misrepresents her credentials publicly, that is immediate grounds for emergency suspension. "And me?" I ask. "You go," Lopez says. "You sit in the back. You do not speak unless you are directly addressed. You do not flash your badge. You let her dig her own grave. If Dr. Monroe chooses to intervene, that is her prerogative as a private citizen protecting her license. But you are the silent observer. You are the pressure in the room." "Understood," I say. "And Rowan?" Lopez adds, her voice softening just a fraction. "Do not let her see you sweat. That is how she wins." I leave her office feeling lighter, but the fear is still there, coiled in my stomach like a snake. Strategy is one thing, reality is another. The reality is that I am terrified of seeing Valerie again. Back in my apartment, I try to prepare myself. I open my closet and pull out the dress I plan to wear. A dark navy sheath, professional, severe, it is armor. But as I hold the fabric, a memory hits me. The smell of vanilla. Valerie wears a custom-blended vanilla perfume that costs $300 a bottle. That night in the kitchen, when she grabbed me, the scent was overpowering. It filled my nose and throat as I hit the floor. Suddenly, I am not in my bedroom. I am back on the hardwood. I can feel the phantom impact on my ribs. My breath hitches. My heart starts to race, galloping at 100 miles an hour. My hands shake so hard I drop the dress. "Stop it," I whisper to the empty room. "Stop it." I force myself to breathe. In for 4 counts, out for 4 counts. This is a trauma response. I know the science of it. My amygdala is hijacking my brain, trying to protect me from a threat that is not currently present. I cannot freeze up tomorrow. If Valerie sees me in the audience and calls me out, if she points a finger and says, "There she is, my poor, hormonal daughter," I cannot sit there and shake. I cannot let her see the victim. I have to show her the investigator. I pick up my phone and open the voice memo app. I need to practice. I need to hear my own voice sounding strong. I hit record. "My name is Rowan Blake." I say. My voice wavers. It sounds small. I delete it. I hit record again. "That is not what happened, Valerie." I say. "Better. You hit me. You assaulted me." I do this for an hour. I rehearse every possible scenario. I rehearse what I will say if she tries to hug me. I rehearse what I will say if she tries to pity me. I rehearse the truth until the words feel like stones in my mouth. Solid, heavy, unbreakable. I am not crazy. I tell the phone, I am not hormonal. I am a witness to your abuse. By the time the sun starts to set, I have a library of recordings. I listen to the last one. My voice sounds cold. It sounds like Lopez. It sounds like someone who is ready to burn the house down. Then my email chimes. It is from Dr. Monroe. The subject line is blank. I open the attachment. It is a scanned document, heavily redacted with black bars covering the personal details of other patients, dates, and insurance codes. But the paragraph in the center is clear. It is a clinical note, dated 6 months ago. Client expresses frustration with stepdaughter. The note reads, "Client asks if PMDD diagnosis can be used to explain aggressive outbursts toward family members. Therapist clarified that while PMDD causes irritability, it does not cause or excuse physical violence. Therapist emphasized that anger management is a separate issue from hormonal regulation. Client appeared dismissive of this distinction." I stare at the words. There it is. Proof. She asked, 6 months ago, she asked if she could use PMS as an excuse. She was planning it. She was testing the waters, seeing if she could get her therapist to sign off on her get-out-of-jail-free card. And when Dr. Monroe said no, Valerie decided to write the permission slip herself. I print the document. The printer hums and whirs, spitting out the single sheet of paper. I fold it carefully in thirds. I do not put it in a folder. I do not put it in an envelope. I slide it into the inner zippered pocket of my purse. It weighs less than an ounce, but it feels heavier than a gun. This is my ace. I promised Lopez I would stay silent. I promised I would sit in the back and let the process work. And I will. I will follow the rules. But if Valerie pushes it, if she stands on that stage and tries to bury me under a mountain of lies, if she tries to make me the villain in her twisted little fairy tale, I pat the purse. I have the truth in my pocket, and unlike her stories, the truth has a timestamp. The grand ballroom of the Fairmont Hotel smells like lavender sanitizer and expensive ambition. It is a cavernous space, the ceilings lost in shadow, the floor crowded with round tables draped in heavy white linen. 500 women are packed into the room, a sea of sharp blazers, statement necklaces, and perfectly blown-out hair. The air hums with the low murmur of networking, the clinking of silverware, and the collective energy of people who believe they are about to be enlightened. I stand at the very back of the room, near the double doors that lead to the service corridor. I am wearing my navy dress, blending into the shadows. My back is pressed against the wainscoting, and the hard wood digs into my bruised ribs, a constant, throbbing reminder of why I am here. I shift my weight, trying to find a position that does not hurt, but there isn't one. The ache is deep, settling into the marrow of my bones. To my left, about 10 feet away, a man in a gray suit leans against the wall, checking his phone. It is Hopkins, the senior field agent from the board. He does not look at me. He does not acknowledge me. He looks like a bored corporate sponsor waiting for the open bar, but I know that the device in his hand is recording every decibel of sound in this room. I scan the front of the room, squinting through the glare of the stage lights, and then I see them. Table 1, center stage. My father is sitting there. He is wearing his good suit, the one he usually saves for weddings and funerals. He looks uncomfortable, tugging at his collar, but his hand is firmly clasped around the hand of the woman sitting next to him. Valerie. She is radiant. She is wearing a cream-colored pantsuit that catches the light, making her look almost angelic. She leans in to whisper something to my father, and he nods, squeezing her hand. The intimacy of the gesture makes my stomach turn over. He is holding the hand that punched his daughter. He is offering comfort to the woman who put me on the floor. The lights in the house dim. A hush falls over the crowd. The massive screens on either side of the stage flicker to life, projecting the logo of the event. Women who lead, owning your narrative. A woman with a microphone walks to the center of the stage. "Ladies," she booms, her voice echoing through the speakers. "Tonight, we have a very special keynote speaker, a woman who has taught thousands of us that true power comes from taking responsibility. She is here to tell us that we are not slaves to our biology. Please welcome the author of The CEO of Your Soul, the incomparable Valerie Kane." The applause is deafening. It rolls over me like a physical wave. I watch as Valerie stands up, kisses my father on the cheek, a performance for the cameras, and glides up the stairs to the stage. She takes the podium with the ease of a veteran performer. She adjusts the microphone, waits for the applause to die down, and smiles. "Thank you," she says. Her voice is warm, rich, and dripping with practiced empathy. "It is so good to be here with my tribe." She starts her speech. It is the standard material at first. She talks about the cortisol levels in high-functioning women. She cracks a joke about chocolate cravings that makes the room ripple with laughter. She talks about the glass ceiling and the sticky floor. She is charming. She is funny. I can see why people follow her. I can see why my father fell in love with her. She makes you feel like she sees you, like she understands your secret struggles. And then, about 10 minutes in, the tone shifts. The lights on the stage turn a soft, somber blue. Valerie grips the sides of the podium. She looks down for a moment, as if gathering her strength, then looks up with shining, misty eyes. "We talk a lot about success," she says softly, "but I want to talk about failure. I want to talk about the darkness that lives inside our own bodies. I want to talk about the monster." The room is dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. "I have spent my career teaching you not to blame PMS for bad behavior." She continues, "But recently, I was tested. I was tested in my own home, in my own kitchen." My heart stops. My breath catches in my throat. She is doing it. She is actually doing it. "I have a stepdaughter," Valerie says, "Rowan. She is 29 years old." She says my name. She puts it out there in the air. Naked and exposed. I see heads at the nearby tables tilt. I see people checking their phones, perhaps searching for my name. "We have always had a complex relationship," Valerie says, a sad smile playing on her lips. "But a few weeks ago, during the peak of my cycle, when my PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, was raging, we had a disagreement. It was about something trivial, money, control, the usual triggers." She pauses for effect. "I was in pain," she whispers. "My body felt like it was on fire. My hormones were hijacking my brain. And Rowan, she is a passionate young woman. She came at me. She was yelling, demanding, pushing into my space, and in that moment, I did not see my daughter. I saw a threat." I grip the back of the chair in front of me. "Liar. I never yelled. I never moved toward you." "I panicked," Valerie says, her voice breaking perfectly. "I flailed. I just wanted to create space. I pushed out my hand, a desperate gesture to protect myself, to say stop." She mimes a weak, defensive shoving motion, nothing like the piston-sharp punch she actually threw. She fell. Valerie continues. She threw herself back. Really, it was dramatic. She lay on the floor and accused me of beating her. She took out her phone. She threatened to call the police. She threatened to ruin my career. She looked at me with such hate, and I stood there, trembling, realizing that my own hormones had turned a family dispute into a crime scene. Tears are streaming down her face now. The camera zooms in, projecting her single, perfect tear onto the 20-foot screens. The audience is enraptured. They are seeing a martyr. They are seeing a mother besieged by an ungrateful, hysterical child. I felt like a monster. Valerie sobs. I thought, is this me? Am I an abuser? She wipes her eyes. But then, she says, her voice gaining strength, I went to my therapist. I sat in her office, terrified. And do you know what she told me? Valerie reaches into the podium and pulls out a piece of paper. It is the letter, or rather, the forgery. My therapist, Dr. Elise Monroe, a brilliant psychologist, wrote this for me, Valerie says, waving the paper in the air. She confirmed that what happened was a severe neurochemical event. She wrote that my actions were not malicious, but a biological reflex caused by acute hormonal toxicity. She told me that I was not an abuser. I was a patient in crisis. She looks out at the audience, her face glowing with redemption. She told me that we must learn to forgive ourselves, Valerie declares, and that the people who love us must learn to forgive us too, because when hormones take the wheel, we are not ourselves. My therapist validated my pain. She gave me permission to stop hating myself. A collective sigh of relief sweeps through the room. I see women nodding. I see my father in the front row, wiping his eyes with a handkerchief, looking at Valerie with pure adoration. He believes her. He believes that the doctor sanctioned the violence. He believes that my pain is just collateral damage in Valerie's brave journey of self-discovery. So I ask you today, Valerie says, her voice soaring, if my therapist can forgive me, if science can explain me, why can't we forgive each other? Why do we let a moment of hormonal chaos define us? My stepdaughter is still angry. She is not here tonight because she chooses to hold on to the victim narrative, but I choose to let go. The applause starts slowly, then builds into a roar, a standing ovation. Women are getting to their feet, clapping, cheering. They are celebrating the woman who beat me. They are celebrating the lie. I stand there in the shadows, my knuckles white as I grip the chair. I feel like I have been punched again, but this time, the blow is not to my ribs, it is to my existence. She has taken my reality, twisted it into a pretzel, and fed it to 500 strangers who are now eating it up. She has publicly diagnosed me as the villain. She has used a doctor's name to launder her violence. I look over at Hopkins. He is still leaning against the wall, but he is no longer looking at his phone. He is looking at the stage. His eyes narrow. He gives a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. He heard it. He recorded it. She just stated on public record that a licensed psychologist validated physical aggression as a medical symptom. She just defamed a doctor and confessed to a crime, all while thinking she was giving an acceptance speech. I look around the room, searching for the one person who matters right now. And then I see her. About 10 rows back from the front, in the center aisle, a woman with gray hair, wearing glasses and a sensible tweed blazer. She is not clapping. She is sitting perfectly still, like a statue in a storm. Dr. Elise Monroe. She is staring up at the stage, at her client who is basking in the applause. She is staring at the piece of paper in Valerie's hand, the paper that bears her stolen name. Valerie blows a kiss to the audience. "Thank you," she cries. "Thank you for hearing my truth." The applause begins to fade as people sit back down, waiting for the Q&A session. The moderator walks back onto the stage, looking choked up. "Wow," the moderator says. "Just wow. Thank you for that vulnerability." "Valerie, I think we all needed to hear that Dr. Monroe's perspective. It is so validating." Valerie smiles, clutching the podium. "It changed my life," she says. "It really did." In the silence that follows, A chair scrapes loudly against the floor. It comes from the center aisle. Dr. Elise Monroe stands up. She does not look around. She does not hesitate. She walks out of the row of seats and steps into the aisle. She is holding something in her hand, her own lanyard, her board certification ID. My heart hammers against my ribs so hard it hurts. I take a step forward from the back wall. The show is over. The trial is about to begin. The applause is still echoing in the rafters when the moderator, a young woman with a bright, eager smile, steps toward the edge of the stage with a handheld microphone. She looks ready to ask the first softball question, something about self-care or morning routines. But before she can open her mouth, a movement in the center aisle freezes the room. It is not a frantic movement. It is precise, deliberate. Dr. Elise Monroe does not shout. She simply raises her hand, holding her laminated credentials high enough for the stage lights to catch the plastic sheen. She walks toward the moderator with the stride of a woman who is accustomed to controlling a room, not by force, but by authority. "Excuse me," Elise says. Her voice is not amplified yet, but in the sudden hush of the ballroom, it carries to the back wall where I'm standing. "I believe I have been mentioned." The moderator blinks, confused. She looks from Elise to Valerie. Valerie's smile freezes. It does not drop. She is too professional for that. But it becomes rigid, a rictus of panic masked as polite curiosity. "Oh," Valerie says into her podium microphone, her laugh sounding tinny and brittle. "It looks like my wonderful therapist is actually here. What a surprise. Elise, darling, we are doing Q&A in a moment. If you want to save your—" "I am not here for a question." "Valerie," Elise says. She reaches the moderator, who, stunned by the sheer command of Elise's presence, hands over the microphone without a fight. Elise turns to face the room. She stands straight, her gray blazer buttoned, her expression unreadable. She looks like a judge about to deliver a verdict. "My name is Dr. Elise Monroe," she says. Her voice booms through the speakers, clear and devoid of the emotional manipulation that saturated Valerie's speech. "I am a licensed clinical psychologist in the state of Cedar, and I need to make a correction to the record immediately, because my name and my professional reputation are being used to validate a falsehood." A gasp ripples through the room. It sounds like 500 people inhaling at once. Valerie grips the podium. Her knuckles are white. "Elise," she says, her tone dropping into that dangerous warning register she uses at home. "This is highly inappropriate. We have doctor-patient confidentiality. You are crossing a line. You waived your right to confidentiality the moment you stood on this stage and publicly discussed the specific content of our sessions to excuse a crime." Elise shoots back. Her voice does not waver. "You cannot use my medical license as a shield for your behavior and then hide behind it when the truth is inconvenient." The camera operators are no longer focused on Valerie. The lenses swing wildly, zooming in on the woman in the aisle. The giant screens flanking the stage switch from Valerie's tearful face to Elise's stern profile. "I want to be very clear," Elise says. Addressing the silent, stunned audience, "I have treated Ms. Kane for over 12 months. In that time, I have never, not once, written a clinical note, a letter, or a summary stating that physical violence against an adult is a symptom of PMS, PMDD, or any hormonal fluctuation. That diagnosis does not exist in my practice, because it does not exist in medical science." Valerie leans into the microphone, her voice shaking. "This is a misunderstanding. My therapist and I have different interpretations of—" "We do not have different interpretations of a forgery," Elise interrupts. She reaches into her bag and pulls out a document. It is not the one Valerie is holding. It is a clipboard with a single sheet of paper attached. "I am holding a consent form signed by Ms. Kane 6 months ago," Elise says. Lifting the clipboard, she authorized the release of her case studies for educational purposes to promote her image as a conscious client. I am now using that authorization to correct the narrative she just fabricated. Elise looks down at the paper and reads, her voice cutting through the air like a knife. Clinical note, dated May 14th. Patient reports using hormonal excuse to avoid accountability for verbal aggression toward staff. Patient asks if this strategy can be applied to domestic conflicts. Therapist advised that this constitutes manipulation and avoids the root cause of the anger. Patient expressed frustration that therapy was not providing the justification she sought. Elise lowers the clipboard. She looks up at Valerie, who has gone dead pale. The angelic glow is gone. She looks small. She looks cornered. "You did not come to me to get better, Valerie," Elise says, and for the first time, there is a hint of sadness in her voice. "You came to me to buy an alibi, and when I refused to sell you one, you forged it." Elise turns her body. She is no longer looking at the stage. She is looking at the front table. She is looking at my father. Dad is sitting frozen in his chair, his mouth slightly open, his hand still resting on the white tablecloth where Valerie's hand had been moments before. He looks like a man who has just woken up in a burning house. "Mr. Blake," Elise says softly. The microphone picks up every nuance. "If your wife showed you a letter on my letterhead stating that I condoned her hitting your daughter, or that I called it a medical necessity, that document is a fake. I did not write it. I would never write it. Your daughter was assaulted, sir, and she was told to accept it because of a lie that carried my signature." My father flinches as if he has been slapped. He looks from Elise to Valerie. He stands up slowly, his legs looking unsteady. "Val?" he whispers. The microphone on the stage catches the sound. "Val, is that true?" Valerie stammers. "Richard, please, she is jealous. She is trying to sabotage my moment. You know how these doctors are. They want to keep us sick." But the momentum has shifted. The air in the room has changed from adoration to suspicion. The women in the audience are exchanging glances. The murmurs are growing louder, a rising tide of confusion and anger. Then, from the left side of the room, another figure stands up. It is Director Mariah Lopez. She does not need a microphone. She projects her voice with the terrifying clarity of a woman who has spent 20 years interrogating liars. "I can confirm that sabotage is not the issue here," Lopez says. She walks toward the center aisle, joining Elise. The visual is striking. 2 women, one a doctor, one a state official, standing as a blockade against the woman on stage. "I am Mariah Lopez," she announces. "I am the chair of the Cedar State Board of Psychological Ethics and Behavioral Coaching, and I am here to confirm that Dr. B. Monroe filed a formal ethical complaint against Ms. Kane regarding the misrepresentation of credentials 3 days ago." The room erupts. People are standing up to get a better look. The live stream comments must be scrolling so fast they are unreadable. Lopez continues, her voice silencing the room again. "Furthermore, my office is currently investigating multiple consumer complaints regarding Ms. Kane's practice. We have reports from 3 other women, adult clients, who claim Ms. Kane used this exact same hormone defense to gaslight them into staying in abusive relationships or accepting professional misconduct." Lopez looks directly at Valerie. "Ms. Kane, do you understand that using your platform to teach women that abuse is a biological side effect is not just a lie? It is a violation of the ethical code you swore to uphold when you accepted your coaching license. You are creating a public safety hazard." Valerie steps back from the podium. She looks around wildly, searching for an exit, searching for an ally. "This is an ambush," she sputters, her voice shrill and panicked. "You are all conspiring against me. I am the victim here. My hormones—" "Stop," Lopez says. It is a single word, but it lands like a gavel. "Do not say the word hormone again. You are not a victim of your biology. Ms. Kane, you are a predator of other women's empathy." Valerie freezes. The camera on the screen catches her expression. The mask has slipped completely. There is no serenity left. There is only the ugly, naked rage of a narcissist who has lost control. For a moment, nobody moves. The silence is heavy, electric. Then, slowly, heads begin to turn. It starts at the front tables and ripples backward. Women are turning in their seats. They are not looking at Valerie. They are looking for the person Valerie had vilified only moments ago. They are looking for the daughter. They turn until hundreds of eyes are facing the back of the room. They find me. I am still standing against the wall, my hand clutching my purse where the evidence sits. I do not hide. I do not look down. I feel the ghost of the bruise on my ribs, but for the first time in a month, it does not hurt. I see women looking at me with shock. I see the realization dawning on their faces that the hysterical, drama-loving stepdaughter Valerie described is actually the quiet woman in the navy dress who has been standing there the whole time, enduring the lies. I lock eyes with a woman at table 5. She looks horrified. She mouths the words, "I am sorry." I look at my father. He is standing with his back to the stage now, staring at me across the vast expanse of the ballroom. He looks shattered. He looks at me, and then he looks at his hand, the hand that had held Valerie's. He drops it to his side as if it is contaminated. On stage, Valerie tries one last time. This is just PMS, she screams, her voice cracking. I am under stress. You have to forgive me. But nobody is listening. The spell is broken. The women who lead are no longer following her. Elise looks at me from the aisle. She gives me a small, grim nod. It is done, her eyes say. I take a breath. The air tastes different now. It tastes clean. I push off from the wall and take a step forward. Not to leave, not to run, but to stand in the light. 3 weeks after the gala, the basement of the Cedar State Ethics Board building feels colder than usual. I have walked these hallways 1,000 times as an employee, carrying files, drinking bad coffee, joking with the security guards. But today, I am not Investigator Blake. I am case number 502B, the primary witness in the emergency suspension hearing of Valerie Kane. The hearing is closed to the public. The media is buzzing outside, feeding on the scraps of rumors that leaked after Elise Monroe stood up in the ballroom. They are calling it the Gala Incident. But in this room, it is not a social scandal. It is a clinical autopsy of a career. Because I am an employee of the board, standard protocol had to be thrown out. My colleagues could not judge this case. The conflict of interest would be too high. Instead, an independent subcommittee has been flown in from 3 counties over. They sit behind the long oak table, 3 strangers with stone faces and thick binders. I sit on the left side of the room. Valerie sits on the right. She has changed her look again. The power suits and the gala glamour are gone. Today, she is wearing a soft, oversized gray cardigan and no jewelry. She looks small. She looks tired. She looks like a woman who is being unfairly persecuted by a heartless bureaucracy. Her lawyer, a sharp-faced man named Mr. Sterling, keeps patting her arm reassuringly. I keep my hands folded in my lap. I do not look at her. I look at the water pitcher on the table. Dr. Elise Monroe is the first to testify. She takes the stand with the same calm authority she held in the ballroom, but here it is backed by data. She opens her laptop and connects it to the room's projector. The respondent, Elise begins, referring to Valerie, has exhibited a documented pattern of cognitive distortion regarding her diagnosis, while PMDD is a legitimate and often debilitating condition. Ms. Kane has repeatedly attempted to use it as a blanket immunity for behavioral violations. Elise pulls up a timeline. It shows dates of sessions, notes, and incidents. On January 12th, Elise reads, Ms. Kane admitted to screaming at a barista and throwing a cup of hot coffee because the order was wrong. When asked about her emotional state, she stated, "It was ovulation week. I literally could not stop my arm." We discussed the difference between impulse control and physiological reflex. Ms. Kane rejected the distinction. Elise clicks to the next slide. On March 4th, Ms. Kane recounted a conflict with a contractor working on her home. She admitted to locking him out of the house and refusing to pay him because he looked at her with a tone. She attributed her reaction to a hormonal drop. She asked me to write a note to the contracting company explaining her conditions so she could avoid a lawsuit. I refused. The room is silent. The air conditioning hums. And finally, Elise says, her voice tightening, regarding the incident with Ms. Blake, the respondent claimed to me that her violence was an out-of-body experience caused by a hormonal surge. However, in the same session, she expressed satisfaction that she had successfully convinced her family that medical necessity was the cause. She viewed the diagnosis not as a pathology to be treated, but as a narrative tool to be leveraged. Valerie's lawyer, Mr. Sterling, stands up. Objection. He says smoothie. Dr. Monroe is characterizing my client's coping mechanisms as manipulation. Is it not possible that Ms. Kane, suffering from a severe dysphoric disorder, genuinely believed her hormones were in control? Are we now criminalizing a woman's confusion about her own body? We are not criminalizing confusion, Elise replies, her eyes icy. We are regulating the exploitation of medical terminology to excuse battery. Next, the committee plays the video testimonies. Since the investigation was elevated to priority status, the board reached out to the authors of the other complaints, the file I had handed over months ago. The screen flickers to life. A woman named Angela appears. She is sitting in her living room, looking nervous. Valerie told me that I was gaslighting myself. Angela says on the video, "My husband pushed me into a wall. When I told Valerie, she asked me what day of my cycle I was on. She said that during the luteal phase, women often perceive high-energy affection as aggression. She told me to apologize to him for misinterpreting his passion." A murmur goes through the panel members. One of them, an older woman with glasses, frowns deeply. Another video plays. It is Jessica. "I wanted to report my boss for harassment," Jessica says. "Valerie told me that if I did, I would look like a stereotypical PMS case to the HR department. She said the only way to win was to control my own biology. She made me track my moods for 3 months instead of filing a report. By the time I realized what she was doing, the statute of limitations for reporting had passed." Valerie is shaking her head at the defendant's table, mouthing the word no. She looks at the panel with wide, pleading eyes, as if to say, "Can't you see they are twisting my words? I was trying to help them." Then it is my turn. The committee calls Rowan Blake. I stand up. My legs feel heavy, but I walk to the witness chair. I sit down. I swear to tell the truth. "Ms. Blake," the lead panelist says, "please describe the events of October 14th. I take a breath. I can feel Valerie's eyes on the side of my face. They feel like heat lamps. "I went to my father's house for dinner. I state, I found a bank statement showing a withdrawal from my father's medical savings. When I asked Ms. Kane about it, she became verbally aggressive. She accused me of spying. And then? She shoved me into the kitchen island. I say, my voice is steady. I practiced this. My lower back struck the granite counter. When I tried to regain my balance, she grabbed my arm and punched me with a closed fist in the left side of my ribcage." "Did she say anything while she was doing this?" the panelist asks. "She called me an ungrateful brat." I say, "She said I was negative energy." "Did she mention hormones?" "Not then," I say. "Not while she was hitting me." I pause. This is the part that matters. This is the part that destroys the defense. After I fell to the floor, I continue. I was unable to breathe. I was in significant pain. Ms. Kane was standing over me. She looked angry. She still had her fists clenched. But then, a neighbor, Mrs. Gable, knocked on the side door. She had heard the noise. I looked directly at the panel members. The moment that knock happened, Ms. Kane changed. I say, it took less than 1 second. She went from screaming to sobbing. She dropped to the floor. She started hyperventilating. She shouted, loud enough for the neighbor to hear, that she was having a panic attack. By the time my father entered the room 10 seconds later, she had fully assumed the role of the victim. I point at Valerie. "That was not a hormonal fugue state," I say clearly. "That was a tactical decision. If she had truly lost control due to a chemical imbalance, the knock at the door would not have stopped her. She stopped because she needed a witness to see her suffering, not mine." Mr. Sterling stands up to cross-examine me. He buttons his jacket, looking solemn. Ms. Blake, he says, you are an investigator for this very board. Are you not? I am. So you are familiar with the rules, he says, and you admit you have had a strained relationship with your stepmother for years. Is it not possible that your professional bias is coloring your personal tragedy? Is it not possible that you are using your knowledge of the system to punish a woman you simply do not like? I did not punch myself in the ribs. Mr. Sterling, I say. No, he concedes. But you are painting a picture of a mastermind. My client is a woman who has dedicated her life to helping women navigate the complexities of their biology. Society already stigmatizes PMS. Society already calls women crazy when they are emotional. By stripping Ms. Kane of her license, are we not just reinforcing that stigma? Are we not telling women that if they break down, they will be punished? It is a clever argument. It frames Valerie as a martyr for women's health. Ms. Kane is not being punished for breaking down. I say, she is being investigated for breaking my ribs. But if the cause was medical? Sterling starts. The cause was not medical, I interrupt. Dr. Monroe just testified to that, and I experienced it. A medical symptom does not check to see who is watching before it manifests. A medical symptom does not forge a letter from a doctor the next day to cover its tracks. The lead panelist leans forward. He is a retired judge with bushy eyebrows. He looks at me over his spectacles. Ms. Blake, he asks, you lived with her. You observed her. If, as you claim, this is not about PMS, and if the medical defense is a fabrication, what do you believe is the actual driver of this behavior? The room goes quiet. Even Mr. Sterling stops shuffling his papers. I look at Valerie. She is staring at me, and for a split second, the sad, victimized mask slips, and I see the cold, hard glare of the woman in the kitchen. Power, I say. I turn back to the judge. Valerie Kane built a career on telling women that they are broken and that she has the fix. I say, she requires total buy-in. She requires absolute adoration in her house and in her practice. She is the sun, and everyone else must orbit her. When I questioned her about money, I stopped orbiting. I challenged her reality. I take a deep breath. She does not use PMS to explain why she loses control. I say, she uses PMS to explain why she is allowed to take control. It is the perfect shield. It makes her untouchable. If you agree with her, she is a genius. If you disagree with her, you are insensitive to her medical condition. It is a closed loop designed to ensure she never, ever has to say the words, I am sorry, and actually mean them. The judge nods slowly. He writes something down on his notepad. Thank you. Ms. Blake, he says, you may step down. The deliberation takes 3 hours. I wait in the hallway, sitting on a hard plastic bench. Elise sits next to me. We do not talk much. We just watch the clock on the wall tick the seconds away. When they call us back in, the atmosphere is heavy. Valerie stands up as the panel members file in. She is clutching a tissue, her eyes red-rimmed. She looks hopeful. She looks like she expects them to hug her. The lead panelist remains standing. In the matter of the State Board versus Valerie Kane, he reads from a document regarding the emergency suspension of license number 4990. He looks up. The committee finds that there is substantial evidence that the respondent constitutes an immediate danger to the public health, safety, and welfare. Valerie gasps, a sharp, wounded sound. We find that the respondent has engaged in a pattern of misrepresentation of clinical data. The judge continues, we find credible evidence of the exploitation of the therapist-patient relationship to conceal abuse, and we find that the respondent's continued practice poses a significant risk of harm to consumers. Therefore, he says, his voice booming slightly, the license of Valerie Kane is hereby summarily suspended, effective immediately. This suspension shall remain in effect pending the conclusion of the full investigation. He looks at Valerie over his glasses. Furthermore, The board issues a cease and desist order regarding all public speaking engagements, workshops, and coaching sessions marketed under your credential. You are to remove all references to board certification from your materials by 5 o'clock tomorrow. You cannot do this, Valerie screams. It rips out of her, raw and ugly. I have a book launch. I have clients. You are destroying my life over a family squabble. This hearing is adjourned, the judge says, closing his folder. Mr. Sterling grabs Valerie's arm as she tries to lunge toward the microphone. She is shouting now. Things about patriarchy, things about betrayal, things that make no sense. Security guards step forward, their faces impassive. I stand up. I feel a strange sensation in my chest. It is not happiness. It is not even satisfaction. Really, it is just relief. It is the feeling of putting down a heavy bag you have been carrying for 10 miles. Elise looks at me. It is over, she says quietly. No, I say, watching Valerie being steered toward the side exit, still shouting that she's the victim. The investigation is just starting. But the lie? The lie is over. I walk out of the hearing room. My ribs still ache, a dull throb that flares when I breathe too deep. But for the first time in weeks, the air in the hallway does not feel suffocating. It feels like oxygen. 2 days after the suspension hearing, my phone rings. It is my father. I stare at the screen for a long time before answering. I am sitting on the floor of my new apartment, surrounded by half-packed boxes. I have finally decided to sever the last financial ties with him, moving into a cheaper place that I pay for entirely with my own salary. Independence is expensive, but the price of admission to my father's life has become too high. Hello. Dad, I say. Rowan, he says. His voice sounds thin, stretched tight over a frame of panic. We are having dinner tonight. Your Aunt Sarah is coming. Uncle Mike. Just family. We need you here. I do not think that is a good idea, I say. Please, he says, and the desperation in his tone makes my stomach clench. She is in a bad place. Rowan, the suspension, the press. She feels attacked. She just wants to explain. She wants to clear up the misunderstanding so we can move forward. It was not a misunderstanding. I say, it was a hearing. She lost. She lost because of a technicality, Dad snaps, his voice rising. Because of a vindictive doctor and a board that does not understand women's health. Rowan, look, do you really want to be the reason her career is destroyed? Over one argument? Over one bad night when her hormones were out of whack? He is still doing it, even after the testimony, even after the judge's ruling. He is still reading from her script. I will come, I say quietly. Good, he says, relieved. 7 o'clock. Please, Ro, just keep an open mind. I hang up. I'm not going to keep an open mind. I am going to close the book. I drive to the house at 6:45. The streetlights are flickering on. The house looks exactly the same as it did the night she beat me. Perfect lawn, warm yellow light spilling from the windows, the very picture of suburban bliss. But as I walk up the driveway, I feel like I'm walking onto a movie set where the props are made of dynamite. When I walk in, the smell of roast beef and rosemary hits me. It is a comfort smell, a smell from my childhood, but tonight it makes me nauseous. They are all in the living room. Aunt Sarah is holding a glass of wine, looking anxious. Uncle Mike is staring at the television, which is turned off. My father is pacing. And Valerie is sitting in her favorite armchair, the queen in exile. She looks up when I enter. She is not wearing the gray cardigan from the hearing. She is back in her armor, a sharp black dress, her hair perfectly coiffed, her makeup flawless, but her eyes are bloodshot. Rowan, she says. She does not stand up. Thank you for coming. I know this has been difficult for everyone. I do not sit down. I stand near the archway between the living room and the dining room. Hello, Valerie. Come, sit, Dad says, ushering us all toward the dining table. Let's eat. We can talk while we eat. We take our places. The tension is so thick it feels like humidity. Aunt Sarah tries to make small talk about the weather, but the words die in the air. We eat in silence for 10 minutes. The only sound the scraping of silverware on china. Then, Valerie puts down her fork. "I want you all to know," she says, her voice trembling with righteous indignation, "that what happened at the hearing was a travesty. It was a witch hunt." She looks around the table, gathering eyes. "That ethics board is run by dinosaurs," she says. "And Mariah Lopez? She has always been jealous of my success. She hates that I monetized coaching while she is stuck in a government job. And Elise," Valerie shakes her head, a tear slipping down her cheek. "Elise betrayed me. I trusted her with my darkest moments, and she twisted them to make headlines." "It is terrible," Aunt Sarah murmurs, patting Valerie's hand. "Just terrible." "And you?" "Rowan," Valerie says, turning her gaze on me. It is a heavy, sorrowful gaze. "I know you are angry. I know I hurt you. But to go to the board? To team up with them? You poured gasoline on a fire that should have been put out with a hug. You turned a family struggle into a public spectacle because you could not forgive a slip of the hand." "A slip of the hand," I repeat flatly. "You punched me." "I was hormonal," Valerie cries, slamming her hand on the table. "How many times do I have to say it? I was not myself. Do you think I wanted to hurt you? I love you, Rowan. But you are so rigid. You hold on to things, and now, because you cannot let it go, I am losing everything." She reaches under her chair and pulls out a leather portfolio. She unzips it and slides a document across the polished wood table toward me. "My lawyer drafted this," she says, her voice softening into a coaxing purr. "It is a letter of support. It clarifies the situation." I look down at the paper. It is titled Affidavit of Non-Threat. I read the first paragraph. I, Rowan Blake, hereby state that the incident on October 14th was a minor domestic accident resulting from a medical episode. At no time did I feel unsafe or threatened by Valerie Kane. I view the actions of the ethics board as an overreach into a private family health matter. "If you sign this," Valerie says, "Mr. Sterling can file an appeal tomorrow. We can stop the suspension. We can tell the press that the victim herself says it was blown out of proportion." She pulls a gold pen from her pocket and sets it next to the paper. "Please, Rowan," my father says. "He looks old tonight. His skin is gray. Fix this. Be the bigger person. She is your mother." "Stepmother," I correct him. "She takes care of us." Dad pleads. "Just sign the paper. End the nightmare." I look at the pen. I look at the document that asks me to erase my own reality. I look at Aunt Sarah and Uncle Mike, who are watching me with expectant, hopeful faces. They want me to sign. They want the boat to stop rocking. They want to go back to the world where Valerie is the perfect hostess and I am just the quiet, difficult daughter. I reach into my pocket, but I do not take out a pen. I take out my phone. "I cannot sign this, Valerie," I say. "Why not?" she demands, her eyes narrowing. "Do you want to see me ruined? Is that it? Is this revenge?" "No," I say. "It is the truth." I unlock my screen. I open my voice memos. "I never told you this," I say to the room, my voice steady in the silence. "But 3 days after you hit me, I came back to the house to pick up my mail. You did not hear me come in. You were in the sunroom, talking on the phone to one of your friends." Valerie goes still. Her fork hovers halfway to her mouth. "I started recording," I say, "because I was scared of you, and I'm glad I did." I press play. I turn the volume all the way up and set the phone in the center of the table, right on top of the lie she wants me to sign. The audio is crisp. The quality is perfect. "Oh, stop worrying. Jen," Valerie's voice rings out from the speaker. It is not the tearful voice she is using tonight. It is bright, arrogant, and laughing. "Richard is fine. He is eating out of my hand. I gave him the whole weepy victim routine, and he melted." On the recording, there is a pause, as if she is listening to the other person. Then Valerie laughs again, a cold, sharp sound. "I just blame the PMS, and it is done," the recorded Valerie says. It is the perfect get-out-of-jail-free card. Men hear the word hormone, and they are terrified. They shut down. No one dares investigate closely when you cry about your uterus. I could have broken her nose and Richard would still be apologizing to me for stressing me out. The recording ends. The silence that follows is absolute. It is a vacuum. It sucks the air out of the room. I look at my father. He is not moving. He is staring at the phone as if it is a bomb that has just detonated. His mouth is open, slack with shock. The color has drained from his face completely, leaving him looking like a wax figure. Aunt Sarah puts her hand over her mouth. Uncle Mike looks down at his plate, his face turning a deep, shameful shade of red. They heard it. They all heard it. The mockery, the calculation, the sheer, unadulterated contempt she has for them, for their gullibility, for the very biology she claims to champion. Valerie is staring at the phone. Her face is frozen, caught between the mask she was wearing and the reality underneath. "Dad?" I ask softly. "Did you hear that?" She said she could have broken my nose. My father slowly turns his head to look at his wife. His eyes are filled with a horror I have never seen before. It is the look of a man realizing he has been sleeping next to a stranger. "You," he whispers, "you laughed?" Valerie's eyes dart around the table. She sees the judgment. She sees the game collapsing. And then, the explosion happens. She does not cry this time. She screams. It is a primal, animal sound of rage. She stands up so abruptly her chair tips over backward with a crash. She grabs the dinner plate in front of her, the roast beef, the gravy, the expensive china, and sweeps it off the table. It shatters against the wall behind me, spraying food and ceramic shards everywhere. "You little bitch!" she screams at me, her face twisting into a grotesque mask of hatred. "You ungrateful, spying little snake! I gave you everything. I gave this family everything." She points a shaking finger at my father. "And you," she shrieks, "you are pathetic. You are so weak. I had to manage you. I had to create a story because you are too stupid to handle the truth. Yes, I hit her. She was annoying me. She was in my way. And I would do it again." My father shrinks back in his chair, trembling. Aunt Sarah is crying now, real tears of fear. Valerie turns back to me. Her chest is heaving. Her hands are curled into claws. "You think you won?" she hisses. "You think you can take me down? I am Valerie Kane. I am a brand. I am—" "You are an abuser," I say. I stand up. I'm not shaking. I'm not afraid. I look at the woman who has terrorized my home for a decade, and I see nothing but a sad, dangerous bully who has run out of excuses. This is not about PMS. "Valerie," I say, my voice cutting through her screaming. "This is not about hormones. This is about violence. This is about power. You hit me because you wanted to hurt me. You lied because you wanted to control us." I reach out and pick up my phone. I leave the affidavit on the table, stained with a drop of gravy from the smashed plate. "I am not signing anything," I say, "and I am not coming back." I look at my father one last time. He is sitting with his head in his hands, weeping silently. I feel a pang of pity, but it is distant. He made his choice. He chose the lie. Now he has to live with the truth. "Goodbye, Dad," I say. I walk out of the dining room. Valerie is still screaming behind me, shouting insults, shouting threats. But her voice sounds small now. It sounds like noise. I walk out the front door, down the driveway, and get into my car. I start the engine. I drive away from the perfect house with the perfect lawn. I do not look back in the rearview mirror. There is nothing there for me anymore. The bruises on my ribs are fading. And finally, so is she. Valerie Kane made one final, fatal miscalculation. She assumed that the silence of the ethics board meant weakness, in a desperate attempt to salvage her crumbling reputation. She did not just accept the suspension, she countersued. She filed a loud, aggressive lawsuit against the state board. claiming that their decision to suspend her license was an act of institutional misogyny and discrimination against women suffering from reproductive health issues. It was a bold move. It was meant to rally her base, to turn the narrative back into a crusade for women's rights. But in doing so, she stripped away the privacy protections of a closed hearing. By suing a public entity, she made the evidence public record. She opened the door, and the entire world walked in. The final hearing takes place in the Superior Court Annex. This time, there are no empty seats. The press is here, the bloggers are here, the former sponsors of the Women Who Lead Gala are here, watching nervously from the back, terrified of being on the wrong side of history. I sit in the front row, next to Director Lopez. I am no longer the terrified stepdaughter hiding in the shadows. I am the primary witness for the defense of the board. Valerie's lawyer, a new one this time because Mr. Sterling resigned after the disastrous dinner party incident, tries to paint a picture of a martyr. He paces before the panel of judges, waving his arms. "We are witnessing a witch hunt," he declares. "My client is being persecuted for a biological reality. The board is effectively saying that women who suffer from severe PMDD are unfit to lead, unfit to work, and unfit to be mothers. They are criminalizing a medical condition." It is a seductive argument. I can see some of the reporters nodding. But then, the board presents its evidence. They do not use dry legal jargon. They play the tapes. First, the video from the gala, Valerie's tearful confession on stage, projected onto the courtroom screens, followed immediately by Dr. Elise Monroe standing up in the aisle to refute it. The gasp in the courtroom mirrors the gasp in the ballroom that night. Then, they play the audio recording from the dining room table. The sound is crystal clear. Valerie's voice, arrogant and laughing, fills the silence of the courtroom. I just blame the PMS, and it is done. It is the perfect get-out-of-jail-free card. Men hear the word hormone, and they are terrified. I watch the faces of the jury. I watch the faces of the reporters. The sympathy evaporates instantly. This is not a woman suffering from a debilitating condition. This is a con artist bragging about the quality of her con. Dr. Elise Monroe takes the stand for the final time. She looks tired, but her voice is unwavering. Empathy for a diagnosis is vital, Elise tells the court. I have dedicated my career to helping women navigate the complexities of their mental and physical health. But there is a bright red line between explaining an emotion and excusing abuse. Hormones can make you sad. They can make you irritable. They can make you feel like the world is ending. But they do not make you gaslight your family. They do not make you forge medical documents. And they certainly do not make you punch your stepdaughter in the ribs and then laugh about it. She looks directly at Valerie, who is staring down at the table, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. To use the language of women's health to shield oneself from accountability is not feminism, Elise says. It is exploitation, and it insults every woman who manages her symptoms without hurting the people she loves. Then it is my turn. I walk to the stand. I do not look at my father, who is sitting in the back row, looking like a ghost. I look at the judges. For 10 years, I say, speaking clearly into the microphone, I was told that my reality did not matter. I was told that if I was hurt, it was my fault for provoking a fragile ecosystem. I was told that my stepmother's career, her brand, and her message were more important than my safety. I pause, taking a breath that fills my lungs completely. The damage was not just the physical blow. I continue. The damage was the systematic dismantling of my truth. When you tell a victim that their abuse is just a medical accident, you are not asking for forgiveness. You are demanding silence. You are asking them to agree that they do not deserve to be safe. And I am done agreeing. The deliberation is short. It takes less than 2 hours. When the judges return, the verdict is absolute. The court rules in favor of the ethics board. The suspension of Valerie Kane's license is upheld and extended to a period of 5 years. Furthermore, as a condition of any future reinstatement, she is required to undergo a mandatory, court-supervised anger management program and is permanently barred from marketing herself as a specialist in behavioral health. The civil judgment also includes a recommendation that all her current contracts involving sensitive counseling be terminated immediately for the public good. It is a total dismantling. As the gavel bangs down, Valerie does not scream. She does not throw a plate. She simply slumps in her chair. She looks around the room, waiting for the applause that has fueled her for decades. But there is only the sound of reporters typing furiously on their laptops. The camera lights are flashing, but they are not capturing a star. They are capturing a cautionary tale. The fallout is swift and brutal. By the next morning, the Women Who Lead organization has scrubbed Valerie's face from their website. Her podcast network issues a statement announcing they are pausing her show indefinitely to review their content standards. Her book publisher cancels the upcoming tour. But something else happens, something better. The video of Elise standing up in the ballroom goes viral. It is shared millions of times, not as gossip, but as a rallying cry. Women start sharing their own stories of being gaslit by partners or parents who used health as an excuse for cruelty. A conversation starts, a real one, about the difference between support and enabling. 2 months later, I walk into the office of the Cedar State Ethics Board. The nameplate on the door has changed. It used to say Senior Investigator. Now, it says Rowan Blake, Director of Ethical Investigations. Mariah Lopez has moved up to the state level, and she recommended me for her seat. You have the instincts, she had told me, and you know what it costs to ignore the red flags. I sit down at the large mahogany desk. It feels big, but it feels right. I open my email. There is a message from Elise Monroe. We do not talk often now. We keep professional boundaries. But she sends me updates on her work. Subject, new curriculum. Dear Rowan, the email reads, I thought you might want to see this. We are rolling out a new training module for all licensed behavioral coaches in the state next month. It focuses on the misuse of diagnostic language. I open the attachment. It is a case study titled Case Study B, the Hormonal Defense Fallacy. It describes a high-profile wellness expert who used a PMDD diagnosis to mask domestic aggression. It analyzes the ethical failures, the manipulation of family dynamics, and the danger of validating abuse under the guise of empathy. The final line of the training module reads, Hormones may explain the origin of an emotion, but they never, under any circumstances, justify the infliction of harm. The safety of the victim always supersedes the comfort of the aggressor. I smile. It is anonymous, but it is the truth. It is written in black and white, entered into the permanent record of how professionals are trained. Valerie wanted a legacy. She got one. She is now the textbook example of what not to do. I close the laptop. I stand up and walk to the window looking out over the city. I moved into my new apartment last week. It is small, much smaller than my father's house, but I pay for every square inch of it with my own money. My father has tried to call me 3 times. I have not answered. I blocked his number yesterday. Maybe one day I will be ready to hear him out, but not today, and not tomorrow. I touch my side, where the bruise used to be. The skin is smooth now. The pain is gone. I take a deep breath, filling my lungs without a single catch, without a single wince. The air is cool and crisp. I am 30 years old. I have a career. I have a home. And most importantly, I have my voice. I walk out of the office, turning off the lights behind me. The darkness does not scare me anymore. I know how to fight in the dark now, and I know that no matter what story anyone tries to tell about me, I am the one holding the pen. Thank you so much for listening to this story. It was a long journey for Rowan, but she finally found her justice. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more revenge dramas where the truth wins in the end, please let me know in the comments section below. I would love to know where you are listening from. Are you tuning in from the US, the UK, Vietnam, or somewhere else entirely? Let's chat in the comments. Please do not forget to subscribe to the Lila Revenge Stories channel, like this video, and smash that hype button to help this story reach more people who might need to hear it. Your support means the world to us. See you in the next story.